Fuentes. This is a regular meeting of the Planning and Land Use Management Committee of the Los Angeles City Council. I'm joined by Council members Englander and Fuentes, and today I will be chairing in the absence of our regular chair, Councilmember Huizar. My name is Marquise Harris Dawson, representing the 8th District. We'll start this meeting with general public comment, for which we have one card from Eric Previn. Come on up, Mr. Previn.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members. It's Eric Previn from CD2. And I wanted to bring up an issue that was passed today in the City Council Hall. I wasn't able to get to it, but I wanted to just provide a little bit of testimony. It's item 20B on today's City Hall agenda. And this is for a property on West Bloomfield Street, right near Coldwater Canyon in Studio City. And what this is a 5-lot development that was vigorously, I must say, opposed by the Studio City Neighborhood Council, which is very rare because they tend to like development in general. And so that was at sort of the end of 2013. And then, to all of our surprise, it has managed to wiggle back into position. And when we looked at Bloomfield Street ourselves, it's already half constructed. And this is, guys, Mr. Englander, I know you're on the phone. Guys, you're both on the phone? That's slightly rude, I would say, but if that's the protocol, we'll go with that. This is, it's like a huge shadow on a small residential street. So I can't understand how it's been proceeding without the approvals in place. I mean, and today it was approved in council.
You've exceeded your time. Thank you so much, Mr. Previn. Mr. Clerk, can you read item number 11?
Yes, Councilman. Item 1 is a motion by Council members Koretz and Ryu. It's instructing planning to initiate proceedings for a general plan amendment and a zone change on a vacant property in CD5.
Excellent. If there are no comments from members or Council District 5, I'd make a motion to approve. Second. Hearing no objection, that is the order. Mr. Clerk, can you read item number 3?
Item 3, Councilman?
Yes.
Item 3, Councilman, is a Department of City Planning report relative to 2015 Mills Act historic property contracts.
Excellent. We have one speaker card on that. Mr. Previn, you're up again.
Greetings, it's Eric Previn. This is the Mills Act item?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
yes, sir.
Thank you.
66
and by the way,
Mills
are you giving 60 seconds?
Yes.
Okay, there are 66 properties. That's ridiculous, sir. Were you in a rush? You were half an hour late. But this is the Mills Act, which I think people are supportive of because it's preserving historical buildings. However, in this particular item, which has 66 properties, as I said, there's the Lofts at Hollywood, which is confusing to me because the properties, there are multiple properties, not all of which are designated, is my understanding, or units, I should say. And basically what I think I need to say, since I have virtually no time, is that we need to see the backup documentation, the sort of transparent piece about the spreadsheet to show, because Mills Act calculations, as you know, have various assumptions, like the price of the property, the price of the job that was done, and so on and so forth. And though some are unimpeachably appreciated and great stuff, others are confusing and hard to read. And so without a high wide shot that shows all that information, and I'll follow up with the Public Record Act request because this is really, it's impossible to speak in 60 seconds, but thank you, sir.
Thank you. If there are no questions or comments from the members, we will approve this on consent. Hearing none, that is the order. Item number 4, Mr. Clerk.
Sure, Councilman. Item 4 is an item located in CD 11. It's an appeal relative to the construction of a new 4-story middle and high school complex. Actually, Councilman, there is no appeal on this item. So it's just the project.
Okay. It's our understanding that the planning department had a comment.
Good afternoon. Jordan Turner, Department of City Planning. Just a quick brief overview of the project. It's a transfer jurisdiction from the City Planning Commission. So it's potential approval of a new middle and high school in the M2 zone. Planning does have one technical correction, which I think has been distributed to the committee. It's an amendment to condition number 18 and just basically talks about the queuing for the site and specifies that a minimum number of 31 vehicles shall be queued within the parking garage.
Excellent, thank you. So we have one speaker card on item number 4, Ruth Sarnoff.
My name is Ruth Sarnoff. I want to speak to what I think is a failure to take advantage of the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, and to prepare EIRs on any of the projects that are going to contribute in a major way to traffic. I've been looking at the 90 projects that were rolled out in May in the Downtown News, and I can tell you just from the few that actually bothered to put whether they were going to have parking or not, because it was not filling out a form or anything, it was just some information. And based on a very small percentage of them, it was the many thousands already of cars. So if we're going to have all of the public parking built up with structures and then turn around and put cars back inside underneath and underground parking, we ought to have a CEQA. And I thank you.
Thank you. If there are no questions or comments from members, we can approve this on consent.
With the technical amendment to condition 18, Council.
That was read into the amendment. Yes, sir. Excellent. Hearing no opposition, that'll be the order. Item number 6.
Sure. Item 6, Councilman, is a Cultural Heritage Commission report. I believe there's a request for a continuance.
Excellent. And then I believe also we are requesting a continuance on item number 7 as well.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. So items 6 and 7 to be continued to November 24th, regular meeting.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. Item number 2.
Item 2, Councilman, is a Planning Commission recommendation relative to a proposed development agreement between MGA North LLC and the City of LA in Council District 12.
Excellent. Mr. Englander?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have actually one technical amendment, and that is under section 2.3.1F and G. To change the timing of the community benefit payments, they should be modified to reflect and split up so that there are $100,000 to each nonprofit prior to the issuance of permits for both the first and second residential buildings, and then also that the assignment language, which should permit transfer in whole or in part, and without city approval, as is standard actually. So that's it's not typical that there would be city approval for an assignment. Specifically, that relates to sections 1.3 and 7.7. So with those amendments, I would ask for an aye vote.
Excellent. Any questions or comments, Mr. Fuentes? We have one speaker card on this matter, Eric Previn.
Yes, it's Eric Previn from the 2nd District. This is MGA North LLC, the Larian 660-unit project out at 20,000 Prairie, former Times plant. Los Angeles has a substantial problem with affordable housing. This guy is providing, I think Mr. Englander got it wrong, it's $200,000 to New Horizons and $200,000 to San Fernando Valley Rescue Mission, which is appreciated. But what we really need, I believe, is something like what they have in San Francisco, which is where developers pay a fee to generate housing that could be appropriate, like 415 in San Francisco, so maybe you know about it. It's hard in 60 seconds, but I'm trying to stimulate that kind of activity because this guy's about to pull out of the station with a great deal, an astonishing deal. We appreciate it, don't get me wrong, because live, work, and play does sound nice, but this is live and work in one environment out in the sort of West, and what's going to happen is, in fact, even the nonprofits are to the east at the 405, and you know, I am sympathetic to the cost of development, but in an environment like San Francisco, if you don't provide affordable housing, you have to provide, there's a penalty, and it's a substantial penalty. They would pay for this exact project.
That's your time.
Yeah, it would be, I'll just tell you the number, though, so you can go away with it, $48 million.
Thank you.
So we're collecting $400,000 to nonprofits.
So, Mr. Clerk, we have a motion as amended by Councilmember Englander before us.
And yes, and since it's a development agreement, Councilman, the action will be to request the city attorney to prepare the development agreement as to final approval.
Excellent. The chair is putting
With
forth such a
Mr.
motion.
Englander's
With the amendments.
We're putting forward such a motion. Is there a second? Second. If there's no discussion or opposition, that'll be the order. Item 5.
Item 5, Councilman, is a Cultural Heritage Commission report. It's relative to the inclusion of Mendel and Mabel Courtyard apartments as a historic cultural monument in CD5.
Excellent. So we'll have a report from staff. Thank you.
Yes. Good afternoon, council members. Ken Bernstein with the Planning Department and Office of Historic Resources. The report before you is the Historic Cultural Monument designation for the Mendel and Mabel Meyer Courtyard Apartments. The recommendation from the Cultural Heritage Commission was unanimous, that the property met 2 of the designation criteria. First, that the apartments are identified with historic personages as the home of Mendel Meyer, one of the most prolific builders in Los Angeles during the first half of the 20th century. His firm, Meyer and Haller, were responsible for the design and construction of the Egyptian Theater, Grauman's Chinese Theater, the Culver Studios, and many other local historic landmarks in the city. Meyer built and owned this property from approximately 1936 to 1954. And secondly, that the work is a notable work of a master builder, designer, or architect as the work of the design build firm Meyer and Haller. This particular apartment complex reflects the evolution of the Meyer and Haller firm from some of their high-style, grand, and themed theaters to the construction of lower-cost multifamily apartment buildings during the era of the Great Depression. And again, the recommendation of the Cultural Heritage Commission was unanimous that it met both criteria.
Okay, I believe we have to hear from the appellant. Now, Mr. Clerk.
Is there an appellant, Councilman, on this? Because,
I have someone who filled out a card who says they're the appellant.
okay.
And they have how many minutes?
I believe
Could I suggest that we get 5 minutes?
it's up to the discretion of the chairman, but
Correct.
typically, yes.
Representing the property
Seemed
owner.
like a nice guy, so 5 minutes.
Thank you. If I was nicer, how much would I get? Thank you very much, Chairman and members. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Tim McCosker with Glazer Weil. I'm here with my colleague, Elisa Pastor, and we represent the property owner. We're going to ask you to reject the recommendation from the commission today. Elisa is going to run through some of the substantive arguments that we raised below, which unfortunately we think we're not adhered to, we're not listened to. What's important to note is that this is a property owner who exercised the Ellis Act and lawfully followed the statute that allows one to remove property from the rental rolls. And as a last-ditch effort to stop that use of the Ellis Act, this application was filed, among other tactics. And this, the applicant you have here is a holdover tenant who we are in unlawful detainer proceedings with now. So we think actually, besides the substance of the case not meeting the criteria of your code, we think actually this is a use of the designation for motives to prevent the lawful use of the Ellis Act.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, members of the committee. My name is Elisa Pastor. I'm here on behalf of the property owner. There's a couple of important things to note here. Number one is that this property was identified on Survey LA, but not as being architecturally significant for itself, but for contributing to a district. And then when it got to Cultural Heritage Commission, and Mr. Bernstein talked about what the two important aspects were that the Cultural Heritage Commission looked at, and one was regarding Mendel Meyer. But what's also important to note is that Mendel Meyer didn't live there during his sort of period that we all know him for, which is the Egyptian theater and the studios and the Chinese theater, which were in the 20s. He lived there in the 30s. And the National Register sort of instructs us that properties that postdate an individual's significant accomplishments are usually not eligible. So we don't dispute that there was a time that perhaps this would have been relevant, but what is relevant to the period he lived there is not the architecture of the property. And also, this building is atypical of their style. Again, they're known for these big theaters, not for these Depression-era buildings. Now, so we presented this evidence, and we had two reputable historic experts, PCR Services and SWCA, and they both agreed that this should not be designated for historic nomination. And if some of this sounds familiar, there's two reasons why. You might remember that recently there was a Marilyn Monroe house that she had lived in when she was first coming to stardom, and the neighbors tried to use the historic tool to have demolition stopped, and the OHR found that it wasn't historic. And in part it said that she had been living in the house when she was discovered, or they essentially said it wasn't associated with the productive period of her life, and that if we looked at every house every celebrity in LA lived in, or every builder, that we'd be designating everything. Similarly, there was a house designed by A.C. Martin, who I'm sure you all know for many, many projects, and again, OHR said, no, this is not historic. This is not what this firm was known for. So we're asking for fair treatment in this case.
Thank you. I think we'll beat our 5 minutes. So there are substantive reasons why you would deny. I will also talk about sort of an important policy reason. We, representing the property owners, or the property owners themselves, are meeting with the tenant and the neighborhood now and have reached out to try to resolve this matter, to try to settle it in a way where the property gets preserved and where the tenant gets to stay on for a period of time. And those negotiations are ongoing, and I hope that they come to fruition, to completion. I think it makes the case more difficult to settle if you make a recommendation today. I mean, clearly I'd like you to recommend no, but I think in fairness of my own logic, it would make sense for you to pass this up to the council without recommendation. I would ask you to give a continuance, actually, but I don't think under the code you can grant a continuance. I think the council has authority under your code to grant a 15-day continuance to let us finish those negotiations, and we will ask up there. And I will also commit to you that not only will we follow these negotiations in good faith, but if we don't reach a negotiation and the council president does not want to see this played out on the council floor, although you already had the hearing, kick it back here. But I'm just asking you not to act as peacekeepers, not to act for one side or the other. Send this up to the council without recommendation, and that allows us, in fairness, to continue at arm's length negotiation to see if we can resolve this amicably. Thank you very much for your time, and we ask you for either a no vote or send it up without recommendation.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all so much. We have several speaker cards. Danielle Elliott, Adrian Fine, Angela Guzman. I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk, I have a card here that says applicant. I have a card here that says applicant. Is it required that they go next? All right, so forget that list. Stephen Luffman, the applicant, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, council members. You all have a flyer in front of you giving you a summary of the property and the reason this is so historic. And let me first say I am opposed to any continuance. This is completely separate to any action against me. I am the one of the people who are still living at 124 North Florey Street, and the building alone stands on its own. It's hard to overstate how important Meyer and Haller was to the development of Los Angeles, especially to the movie industry. By the 1920s, Meyer and Haller was building everything from film plants, movie studios, movie palaces, the clubs where the stars went, and the grand homes where they lived. They literally created the Hollywood glamour industry that we know today. In 1932, with the onset of the Great Depression, they went bankrupt. It turns out they were sued by one of their clients, King Vidor, the famous director. But in a story worthy of a Hollywood ending, Mendel Meyer and his partner reinvented themselves. They built a new Meyer and Haller, building beautiful homes in Bel Air and Homely Hills, along with more modest homes in the Valley and Long Beach. They built these apartment buildings that are in front of you in an area we know as the Beverly Grove. Mendel and his wife Mabel not only built these courtyard buildings as income property, but they also built them as their own home. They had lost their home on the hill, a mansion on Rampart, then fashionable hill on Rampart, during the beginning of the Depression, moved to another apartment building, and built these buildings in 1936 and moved in. Mendel and his wife Mabel lived there until their deaths in 1955, just before their deaths in 1955. In 1954, they moved up to Santa Barbara with their son. The Meyers built a beautiful courtyard building for those same people who would go out for a night on the town to see a movie at the Chinese theater. People who couldn't afford a single-family home, but they could afford these grand, modern apartments with their elaborate detailing and each with their own private backyards. These buildings had the comfort of a single-family home, and they still serve that same function today. Thank you.
Thank you. Right now, regular public comment on item number 5. We have Carol Cetrone, Amy Gallaudet, Rosalie Newell.
How much time? 1 minute? Okay. Thank you for your time. I've been to this building, and I can witness that it's a beautiful testament to this very unique style of architecture. I just want to state that I think that the statements made by the appellants kind of bolster the case for preservation, because I think just because the architecture in this building is beyond the period of significance, I think that it actually expands our capability to understand what these architects were capable of. We were actually getting to see something beyond the scope of what is considered in their area of expertise. And I also think that the fact that you have the support of Council Member Koretz, and you have a unanimous vote by the Office of Historic Resources and the Cultural Heritage Commission serves as a very strong reminder of the importance of this building. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Amy Gallaudet, and I'm here to represent 3 homeowner associations that I belong to. Flores is a work of art. You would not demolish a Van Gogh or a Rembrandt to put up a Mendel Spiegel and replace it with something that has no character. We will never see this craftsmanship in detail again that is in Flores. Flores is a treasure. Flores needs to be designated historic because it is historic. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Rosalie Newell, and I'm the owner of a building on 100 North Sweetser, which is a block that's just east of the Flores building where the Courtyard apartments are. Both of these blocks have been designated by Survey LA as having their original buildings. And I would like to emphasize how enjoyable and pleasurable it is to live in a walking neighborhood where you can see such lovely architectural detail, courtyards with green space. I've lived on Sweetser since 1987, and I've seen many beautiful buildings in other blocks torn down piece by piece. And all I can say is that we miss them. We miss them greatly on our walks because they represent a kind of harmony and beauty in the neighborhood, which I hope will continue to be preserved.
Thank you. We have Karen Smalley, Heather Fox, Keith Nakata, Liza Gerberding, Danielle Elliott, and Adrian Fine.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Karen Smalley, and I am privileged to have been living in 124 North Flores, one of the buildings of Mabel and Mendel Meyer's Courtyard Apartments. I wanted to speak about the community's support for this. We generated a petition that has been signed by local residents within a 3-block area, over 100 local residents and nearly 200 people who are in the area surrounding it. We have huge community support for this. I also want to say that last week I went to the Chinese theater, and as I marveled at the intricacies of their craftsmanship there, I remembered when I first moved to this building 18 years ago, and how everyone who came over, I would point out the interiors of cabinets, the detailing all around these apartments, and how splendid they were. I had no idea they were built by such master craftsmen, but I hope you will see fit to save them so that they will continue to be exclaimed over by the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you. We should also add Angela Guzman to the queue.
Thank you for your time. The first time I stepped foot inside the Mendel and Mabel Courtyard Apartments, I was impressed with the elaborate detail of the place. I was not familiar with Monterey Revival architecture or that the man who had designed the Grauman's Chinese Theater was also responsible for such beautiful and peaceful, not to mention well-preserved living spaces. As a Los Angeles native, I am proud to find these connections to history everywhere I look. And if we don't protect that, then what does the future of Los Angeles look like? I strongly support the designation of the Mendel and Mabel Courtyard Apartments as a historic monument. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Keith Nakata. I'm a member of the Planning and Land Use Committee of the Mid-City West Community Council. The Mendel and Mabel Meyer Courtyard Apartments were reviewed by the Mid-City West Community Council, Planning and Land Use Committee, and Board, and was unanimously supported for designation. I strongly support its designation as a monument, which was found by the Cultural Heritage Commission to meet the findings necessary for its designation. It's a beautiful example of multifamily housing with attention to indoor and outdoor living and for fine interior detailing. The apartment buildings are in a highly intact period neighborhood. The designation has strong support of the community and the councilman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Liza Gerberding. I'm on the Mid-City West Community Council Planning and Land Use Committee, which voted unanimously in August of this year to support the Historic Cultural Monument designation before you today. That motion was then subsequently approved by the full board on September 18th, 2015, and Mid-City West Community Council is on the record for this hearing in support of the HCM designation. I'm speaking today, however, as a private stakeholder, a resident of the Miracle Mile, and a lifetime Angelino. I beg you to please approve the HCM designation of these buildings. Los Angeles needs to continue to claim its rightful place at the table as a world-class city that protects its cultural heritage. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Danielle Elliott. I'm a real estate broker, and unlike a lot of the people in my profession, I believe in historical preservation. I am the realtor for the area, and the Mabel Meyer Courtyard is a jewel for our community. It defines our community, just like West Adams and Angelino Heights has its buildings, and other cities have their brownstones. We have Mabel Meyer. And I encourage you to listen to the professionals, those people that have, and your commission, that have suggested to have this designated a historical monument. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Angela Guzman. I am on the board of the Mid-City West Community Council that voted to support this property, the Mendel Meyer Courtyard Apartments. But I'm here as an individual just to let you know that I have lived in various properties. This particular style is a fading, I don't want to say, well, anyway, it's something that is not very common anymore today, but it is a foundation of this city. And I believe that the Cultural Heritage Commission, their inclusion of this property is vital to our city, and I think we should all support that. Thank you so much for your time.
Good afternoon, Adrian Scott Fine with the Los Angeles Conservancy. I'm here in support of this nomination and with our nearly 6,500 members as part of that. Historic multifamily buildings like this really do help support and define the city's neighborhoods, and this building is very much important and part of that. And we fully concur with the Cultural Heritage Commission's findings on this in terms of its meeting criteria. We are very encouraged to hear that there's negotiations happening on this, and we certainly support that if it includes the retention of this building. However, we think the Historic Cultural Monument nomination is paramount to ensuring that this building does remain and then can be part of these negotiations going forward. So we would encourage your full support of this nomination to the full City Council. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So to close testimony, we'll have Noah Mulstein from Council District 5. We don't, after the item is read, we don't take any more cards after that? One minute, come on up. Say your name, please.
I'm one of the applicants, if you wouldn't mind if I had a couple of minutes to respond to.
Well, we can only have one.
There's two applicants, actually, and I'm one of them. Oh, fair enough.
Total, yeah.
My name's John Henning, and I live right next door to the site. And I support the nomination. I also oppose any attempt to continue the matter. This is something that the whole neighborhood supports. The Certified Neighborhood Council, many neighbors came to the Cultural Heritage Commission meetings. Everybody was in favor of designation. There's no reason to put this over or to do anything other than to recommend and support the decision of the Cultural Heritage Commission. This is not like the Marilyn Monroe house where she lived in a house for a year before she became famous. This was the home of a famous builder during the period of his work as an architect during the late 1930s, and represents a rare example of this architect's work that survives today. He's a famous person in the 20s, and he was still a famous person in the 30s, very different from the Marilyn Monroe situation. Plus, he built the house. He didn't just live there. So anyway, so I'm opposed to any continuance on the basis of negotiations or otherwise. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Council District 5, Mr. Mulstein.
Good afternoon. My name is Noah Mulstein, Planning Land Use Deputy for Councilmember Koretz's office. Our office understands that this application has been approved by the CHC to nominate the building at 118 through 126 and a half Flores Street as a historical cultural monument. These buildings had great characteristics, add great characteristics to the neighborhood as they, once did in the 1930s. Our office is, our office met with the applicant and has met with the applicant several times, and is pleased to also hear that they've just kind of been in continue conversations with some of the project owner and the applicant of this appeal. They've been in communication, and we're pleased to hear that they've been doing that, and just to encourage that they continue talking on the matter. But all in all, we support the CHC's nomination. We recognize that the historical cultural monument must meet a certain set of criteria, and that we believe that, again, this has been met, and so our office asks that you support the nomination. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Any discussion, members?
Couple questions. Is this a time-sensitive matter that has to be heard today?
Last day for council action is December the 2nd, Council. Theoretically, you could continue it to next week's meeting.
I see. And is council the only one that can grant an extension of time? That's what was stated
Yes,
earlier.
according to the code, once the 90 days are met, you could do a 15-day extension, but there has to be a finding of cause for that extension.
Mm-hmm. And only council can
Yes.
act on the extension,
Yes.
not committee.
No, not committee, the council.
Okay. And the reason I was asking that is, just in going back in some of the comments that were stated earlier, comparative to not only the Marilyn Monroe property, and I remember that one well, and I think everybody on both sides were right on that, spot on. Only lived there for a short period of time. There was some issues there, but the other one that was mentioned also, the A.C. Martin House, I think it was Mr. McCosker that might have stated that it was approved by the commission, but then not upheld. Actually, it wasn't approved. It was or not approved by the commission. It actually was. It was this committee that turned it over because of the property owners. So one of the things we've done looking at this, because we have a lot of them coming up, as you can imagine, almost every plum meeting we have a property that's coming before us. And it's so important that we protect the heritage and the culture and the architectural elements of this city. It's so important that we do that. And not only because of the history, but the significance on what's behind each project that is unique. And in this one, it sounds like there are some really fascinating elements in this person's life and some of the properties that they built. And I'm not going to lay judgment one way or the other on, the fact that this came out of post-bankruptcy, where this is a firm that already had designed so many significant buildings, including the one our mayor lives in, I believe, as well, right? The Getty House, and many of which are protected. But beyond that, I think it sounds like there's a lot of support. The council office supports it, the community supports it, the neighborhood council supports it, HOA support it, and therefore we should support it. Now, having said that, though, there was one person that didn't. Or how do you scale that? The people that own it. And it sounds like there may be a willingness to work out some of those elements over the next few weeks. This has been decades of, and it doesn't sound like there's anything to me that I've heard, and there was no testimony on possible project or anything moving forward at this time. It sounds like more of some opportunities for somebody to work and iron out those differences. So I don't see any reason where we shouldn't send this to the full council without, now not holding it here or asking for the extension here, but send it to the full council, as everybody asked, with no recommendation, and let the council weigh in on those opportunities. And so that would be my suggestion.
Second. Question? Nope. Excellent. All right. That's the order. It'll go to council with no recommendation from the committee. Item number 8.
Item 8, Councilman, is a hardship exemption application. It's been filed for the property at 1600 Courtney Avenue in CD4.
Excellent. We have one speaker card on item number 8. The speaker is Julia Duncan.
Councilmember Rue's office, Julia Duncan. Our applicant is here as well today if you'd like them to speak after. Thank you, council members. The nature of this request lies in the applicant's financial and emotional hardship in regards to 1600 Courtney Avenue. They're here today. They've lived in the neighborhood for 17 years, and they've lived in this specific home since 2005. On May 13th, 2005, a letter was sent to the previous council office indicating that Courtney Small had met with her neighbors the previous month, or April 2014, a month after the initial ICOs had passed, per the request of the previous council office. The meetings were held to garner the support of all of their abutting neighbors. They shared their remodel designs as well as elevations, which they had initiated in January of 2014. The family intends on adding a second story to accommodate their larger family. Additionally, the applicant intends to retain the colonial style of the home in cohesion with the character of the neighborhood. The abutting neighbors in the rear, adjacent, and across the street have all signed letters of support, and the Sunset Square Neighborhood Organization has also written a letter of support. That's it. We ask that you approve their hardship exemption, and I can answer any additional questions if you have any.
Excellent. Any questions, members? Excellent. It's been moved and seconded. Hearing no opposition, that's the order. Item 9.
Item 9, Councilman. Again, it's a hardship exemption application for the property at 175 South Thurston Avenue in CD5.
All right, there are no speaker cards, but there is a representative from CD5. Noah Mulstein, Council District 5.
Good afternoon. Noah Mulstein, Planning Deputy for Councilmember Paul Koretz's office. Before us today is a request for an exemption to the Lower Council District 5 ICO located within the Council District. In reviewing this case, several unique circumstances have been noted over the past and come to bear in this property in the property owner's request. Those circumstances surround litigation of a damaged city street and damages that has been caused by the existing home. For the past few years, the property owner has been working with the city to have the street repaired so a new home could be built without further damage being done. For many months, the property owner held off on submitting his already completed home plans while he worked with DOT, BOE, and the mayor's office and our city council office so that the repair schedule could be flushed out and the new home could be built. Unfortunately for the property owner, during that time, the March 25th ICO came into effect. Knowing that the documented instance of a failed city road combined with documented attempts to work with the city prior to construction and the property owner having completed his plans prior to the ICO allows the office to support this requested ICO exemption since the city and the property owner were active participants in trying to fix the problem that led to the building plans not being submitted prior to the ICO. Additionally, the applicant has secured support from secured support from many of the new homeowners and abutting neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes testimony on that matter. Do we have a motion to approve? Motion to approve. Excellent. Second. It's been moved and seconded. Hearing no opposition, that's the order. Item number 10.
Yes, Councilman. Item 10 is an appeal by Leah Blows. She's appealing the action of the zoning administrator, which granted modifications for a 90 single-family small lot project in CD7.
Good afternoon, council members. Fernando Tovar for the record. I'm the zoning administrator responsible for this case. Let's see if I can get this right. Okay. So council members, the appeal before you concerns an approval of a clarification to amend several Q conditions that are contained in ordinance number 179269, which was adopted by the City Council on October 2nd, 2007, in order to effectuate a zone change on a portion of the subject site from RA-1 to RAS-3-1. In addition, a related subdivision map, tentative tract map 68157, was approved by the advisory agency in April of 2007. The approval of both the zone change and the map was in connection with a mixed-use development that consisted of 247 residential condominiums, as well as ground floor commercial uses. The site is located at 12361 San Fernando Road and is a vacant parcel containing approximately 6.5 net acres with approximately 360 feet of frontage on the west side of San Fernando Road. The Sylmar Community Plan designates the entire site for community commercial land uses, and the site is currently zoned C2 for a depth of approximately 150 feet, and the remainder of the site is zoned RAS 3-1, which was the portion of the site that was the subject of the zone change in 2007. The site is also designated a mixed-use boulevard and a transit-oriented district. It's located approximately 1/4 mile west of the Sylmar San Fernando Metrolink station. The site is subject to a footnote in the community plan that encourages residential developments within designated commercial areas to include neighborhood retail services on the first floor. So that mixed-use development never came to fruition, and the property has since changed ownership, and the current property owner is now proposing to construct a small lot subdivision in lieu of the previously approved mixed-use development. In order to proceed with the small lot project, the applicant filed a modification to the previously approved map and also filed the instant clarification that is before you today to amend the Q conditions attached to the zone change. In July of last year, I approved the clarification acting as the ZA, and I approved the modification to the related map acting in the capacity of the advisory agency. The related map, just to be clear, was not appealed and is not before you today. With respect to the appeal on the clarification that is before you, the applicant generally raises the following issues. One is that the revised project is not consistent with the community's expectations. Unlike the original mixed-use development, the appellant states that the revised project does not provide adequate open space or commercial services. The applicant also states that the site is zoned commercially and should be utilized for commercial uses. And the appellant also states that guest parking provided is inadequate. The previously approved mixed-use development consisted of a 3- and 4-story development, and the project was provided open space in conformance to Section 12.21G2 of the Code. The project was designed around several open courtyards and a plaza that included common amenities such as a swimming pool, a fitness center, a lounge, and private open space was provided within individual balconies. The revised small lot project is treated as a single-family use and is therefore not subject to the code's open space requirements. However, in response to the appeal and in response to concerns raised by Council District 7, the applicant has worked closely in consultation with CD7 and has revised the project and is now dedicating 6 lots located along San Fernando Road to the Department of Recreation Parks to be set aside as open space. Now, I've submitted for your consideration, council members, a package that includes on the very top of the package a set of revised conditions and findings dated November 17, 2015. These are for your consideration, and these basically reflect the revised project as negotiated between Council Office 7 and the developer. Now, there are 3 findings required to be established in order to approve an amendment to Q conditions. That first finding, which is located on page 7 of your document, and it's identified as finding number 9, reads as follows, that the request is consistent with the City Planning Commission guidelines. The City Planning Commission adopted guidelines on October 6, 1988 that established parameters or thresholds for consideration of clarifications or amendments to Q conditions. Those guidelines allow consideration of clarifications for the following: changes in height which do not exceed 5 feet, changes in floor area which do not exceed 3% of the total gross floor area of a building, minor revisions of landscape plans, and revisions of setback requirements which do not exceed 10% of the setback requirement. Now, the Q conditions of Ordinance 179269 include site-specific conditions that address the use, setbacks, maximum density, maximum height, maximum floor area, and parking. The revised project essentially falls completely within the parameters established by the City Planning Commission's guidelines. I'm going to just briefly walk you through those Q conditions. Q condition number 2 requires a 21-foot landscape setback buffer along Burke Street and prohibits vehicular access from Burke Street. The revised project maintains the same or greater setbacks and conforms to the 21-foot landscape buffer along Burke Street. There is no vehicular access provided on Brook Street, other than emergency access and otherwise vehicular access, is limited to San Fernando Road. Q condition number 3 limited the density to 247 dwelling units and to 8,400 square feet of office and 9,000 square feet of retail use. The revised project now contains 84 dwelling units and does not exceed the maximum density permitted on the site. Q condition number 4 limits height to 60 feet and limits maximum floor area to 1.5 times the buildable area of the lot. The revised project will not exceed a height of 26 feet, 2 stories, and will be limited to an FAR of less than 0.521, so approximately 1/3 of the original project. And then Q condition number 5 addresses parking. It requires 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, plus 1/4 guest parking space per dwelling unit. The revised project provides 2 spaces per dwelling unit within attached garages. And in addition, it not only provides a minimum of 1/4 guest parking space per unit, it actually exceeds that ratio. Based on the 84 dwelling units, a total of 21 guest parking spaces would be required based on that ratio, and a total of 27 spaces are provided. And Q condition number 5 has been modified to require a minimum of 27 guest parking spaces on the site. The second finding, which you'll find on page 9 and is labeled as finding number 10, reads as follows: that the amendment or clarification is necessary in order to carry out the intent of the City Council in adopting the Q classification. Now, Section 12.32 of the Code lays out the procedure for processing zone changes, and specifically Section 12.32G2 allows the City Council to impose Q conditions on a zone change in order to ensure that a development is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, as well as to prevent or mitigate potential adverse environmental impacts from the zone change. To that end, the Q conditions that are attached to Ordinance 179269 limit the density and floor area of the site, consistent with the scope of the previously approved mixed-use development. The Q conditions also limit height and require minimum landscape setbacks to ensure the proposed project remains compatible with surrounding properties. So the subject site, I believe it was at one time occupied by a skate rink. It's now been vacant for quite a few years and is blighted and is an eyesore. And in approving the zone change, the City Council sought to revitalize the area with a development that would provide needed housing and home ownership opportunities, and that would also provide services to the local community. And the previously approved mixed-use development certainly included desirable features such as the commercial component to provide local services to the community, as well as provided on-site amenities for the residents of the project. However, council members, as you are aware, financing for residential condominiums remains a challenge in the current market. Many projects that were entitled as residential condominiums during or before the recession have been converted to apartment buildings. In addition, this particular site is a challenge for commercial uses. The site is located on a segment of San Fernando Road that is characterized by a mix of industrial, auto body, auto repair uses, and some apartments. The site is directly across from the railroad right-of-way, which bifurcates the site from the east side of San Fernando Road. So there's no access between the east and the west side of San Fernando Road. The the east side of San Fernando Road is zoned QM1 and contains several auto body shops, a neon sign fabricator, RV rentals, and light industrial uses. Properties on the west side of San Fernando Road are intermittently zoned C2 and RAS3 and are improved with either apartment buildings or with automotive repair uses, a plumbing contractor, a landscape contractor. Right next door, the site abuts a landscape contractor on one side, an apartment on the other. Both of those properties are Zone C, but again, they're Zone C, but there's no commercial uses on those properties. So based on these circumstances, the site's commercial viability and ability to attract commercial tenants is a challenge. So with the exception of the deletion of the commercial component, the revised project is generally in substantial conformance to the Q conditions on the site. With respect to the open space, as I already mentioned, the project's been revised to provide additional open space. More than 10,000 square feet of public open space will be provided. The small lot ordinance establishes a minimum lot size of 600 square feet for each lot. In this case, the size of the lots is between 2,000 to 3,000 square feet, and each lot will provide between 348 to 1,200 square feet of private open space. So combined between the individual private open space within private yards and the public open space that will be dedicated, the site will provide over 50,000 square feet of open space. For comparison purposes, the previously approved mixed-use development provided 56,000 square feet of open space, but again, that was for a density that's 3 times greater than the current project. So for all of these reasons, I think, council members, that you can find that the revised project conforms to the spirit and intent of the Q condition, that the revised project remains compatible with surrounding uses, and that the clarification is necessary to carry out the intent of the council in adopting the Q conditions of Ordinance 179269. And finally, the last finding, which is located on page 12 of your document, labeled as finding number 11. That finding reads as follows, that the amendment or clarification would have only a minimal effect on adjacent property and would not result in a significant or substantial deprivation of the property rights of other property owners. As I've mentioned, in light of the fact that the revised project results in a substantial reduction in density and a substantial reduction in the environmental impacts associated with the previously approved project, the revised project in no way interferes with or deprives the adjacent properties from any of their property rights. Just as a comparison, council members, the original mixed-use project included subterranean parking for more than 600 vehicles, and that would have required 56,400 cubic yards of export. The revised project will provide parking within attached garages, as well as surface guest parking at grade, and will result in 9,000 cubic yards of import, so there's a big difference in the amount of hauling activities. So again, as I stated, I think in light of the reduced project, the revised project will not interfere with the property rights of any adjacent properties. So with that, council members, I would recommend that you grant the appeal in part to modify the project and to sustain my decision in approving the clarification and the amendments to modify the Q conditions numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 15, and to delete Q conditions numbers 6, 7, and 8, which are not relevant to the revised project, and that you adopt the attached modified conditions of approval and the revised findings as well. And finally, that you determine that the previously adopted MND, which was adopted on October 2nd, 2007, properly evaluated all of the revised projects' environmental impacts, and that no further analysis is required. And if you have any questions, I'm available. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your thorough and lucid presentation. We have 2 folks who have filled out documentation to speak on this matter. We have Sean Evenheim and Ann Job. If either of you are here, please approach the desk.
Councilman, the appellant.
There's an appellant?
Yes, sir.
Got no card.
Her name
okay. With the aforementioned appellant?
The appellant. There's an appellant here.
He's the applicant.
Okay.
Who's the appellant?
I have Ann Job. You're not the appellant, all right?
Well, maybe is Leah Bloss here? Okay, thank you.
All right. Mr. Evenheim?
Good afternoon. The reason that she's not here speaks a lot about this whole process and appeal. But we worked closely with the councilman's office and the planning department, and this is a project that's ready to be built. It's already graded. Hopefully we'll start construction immediately. There are 2 issues that are in the condition that I discussed with the planning department and the representative from the council office. One of them is condition number 13, specify that we will dedicate a park. We like to change it to be to donate by dedicating the park, which we give 6 lots, which is a substantial amount of money. In addition, we pay the Quimby fee. So typically when you dedicate a park, you don't pay Quimby. So we've done both. And we have to improve the park partially. So we like to take some tax advantage to accommodate some of these losses. And we don't see why it should be an issue. Again, we are committed to do it. The other thing regarding the parking, it is required, we show as many parking as we can provide on any project. In this project, we were able to provide 27. The original approval required 21, which is 2.25 parking. We still intend to provide 27, but we don't think it's fair to cap it at the 20, or to put the minimum as 27, because sometimes the DWP or the post office will require certain areas for their systems, which they already did on part of the park, and that can eliminate one space or two space. So we like to put the minimum at 25, not at 27, so it will allow some leeway, but we will commit to provide as many as we can. That's why we showed it on the site plan. We could have shown just 21, but we prefer to show as many as possible. And if you have any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Thank you. Yes.
Just to say that I did give some letters to the clerk, and Leah Blows has a comment in the letters I gave you. My name is Ann Job. I'm the president of Sylmar Neighborhood Council. And as I tried to follow as best I could what was being said there, it's changed everything for me, is what I was going to say. It seems like to me that Mr. Evenheim and our Councilmember Fuentes have been working together productively, and I feel like we're in very good hands as this thing moves forward, that Sylmar will be protected, and that all and good will come from this. I'm thrilled at what I'm hearing, because I certainly didn't expect this. I will familiarize myself with what was said so quickly, and take this back to the Sylmar Neighborhood Council, that very good work is being done in our behalf. Thank you.
We just want to know, where can we get one of those shirts?
I had to beg.
Mr. Fuentes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for Mr. Evenheim's willingness to work with our office. Mr. Tobar did an amazing job on this case, and so good that all of the things that I needed to read into the record for the motion, you've already done for me. So I would move that we approve the file as stated by our ZA, Mr. Tobar.
Excellent. Second? Second. Excellent. Hearing no opposition, that is the order. Mr. Clerk, we will receive and file number 11.
Okay, and as for item 10, Councilman, if we can make it clear that we're denying the appeal.
We are denying the appeal?
Well,
grant in part.
The appeal in part to
grant in
modify.
part and deny in part with a modification.
Mr. Tobar did it.
Yes.
Perfectly.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry. And then,
so we'll receive and file number 11?
Yes, because the Director of Planning is not here.
Excellent. And with that, this meeting of the Planning and Land Use Management is done.
Public comment? Did you take public comment?
We already did.
Okay. Good. Okay.
That was Mr.
I forgot he had read the denial. Okay. Very good. Tobar, you're too thorough.
Sorry, it was a no on public comment at the end. I really wanted to speak to you.